starting a new discussion on a new topic today, since we finished science to samadhi. The new topic is Chariot of Life, based on Osho's talk on the Jivan Sarthi. It's based on the Buddhist quotes and discusses how we should be living our life. Life, everybody lives, and everybody is born, everybody dies. What we get out of life is entirely up to us. Life can be lived in so many different ways. If we really equate the whole life to the chariot, the driving of a chariot, we can look at the body as a chariot, and it's being driven somehow, somewhere, by everyone. All the chariots are going around, some with destination, some without destination, some random, some around in circles, some taking exits, some staying on the exit, some going, reaching the goal. All kinds of lives are being lived, and you can equate those with the chariots, races of chariots, driving of the chariots. The question comes in, who is driving the chariot? Whether the chariot is being driven by Arjun, like you and me. Mm-hmm. We are Arjuns. Arjun's another name is Path. Path comes from Prithvi. Prithvi is the soil, the planet that we live on. So when you combine the body and the mind, that's Path complex. Path belongs to the matter. The matter as it is generates the thoughts in our body. The body, of course, is a matter. That's no-brainer, because we eat, we consume, we excrete, and continuous flow is going on. But every single process, the matter is involved. So the matter basically makes the body, sustains the body, and takes the body back to itself. So that's no-brainer. But if you go any further, the mind itself is also matter, kind of. Because everything that mind thinks about is matter. Without matter, mind will not exist, kind of, for most of the people. There is another spiritual aspect of the mind, but for most of the people, that spiritual aspect remains hidden. So for practical purposes, mind-body complex is the matter. So if you really look at it, the mind, in most of the people's case, is driving the chariot meaning our body. And our behavior is decided by the mind itself. So in most of those cases, Arjun is the driver. He's deciding where the chariot should go. But in reality, things should be different. In Gita, Krishna is the charioteer. He decides where the chariot should go. If you really think about it, the charioteer is at the feet of Arjun, who is in the chariot itself fighting. So we think that Krishna, being a higher god, should be at a higher level. And Arjun, like you and me, we should be at the feet driving the chariot for the god.
Correct.
So in a way, you think that we should be giving respect to God, and God is at a higher level. And that's exactly what we're doing. We have been putting God at a higher level.
On a pedestal.
At the pedestal, keep worshipping, keep bowing, keeping him a very high level above all of us, almost without reach, and then we are driving our own chariots. And in that process, we're going into the ditches, we're ending up in a tragic ends, sufferings, and not enjoying the life that we're supposed to live. So God should be part of every single action that we're taking, but He's not. And that's where the discussion of today's topic is, Chariot of Life. So life can be lived in two ways, as a master and as a slave. The life of a slave, it just appears as a life, but it's really not worth living the life. You are constantly depending on something else for the pleasure. It is an illusion. It's not really a real life. It's like a bad dream, as if you had a rotten apple and it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, at the end of your life you will say that, I lived, but for what? So it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth at the end of your life. And that's the life of a slave. So you as a living as a slave, working for the senses, 24/7, you think that you have a handle on the life, but you never have a handle on the life. As if you're like trying to grasp the life, but somehow the life manages to slip away. And you always think that the next move, the next stock that you buy, or next move that you're going to make in life, or next person that you're going to meet is going to bring me pleasures. And it always fails you somehow. Whatever you do get is so temporary, so life betrays you again. That's the life of a slave. So somehow there is no positive gain if you really equate from the time of the birth to the time of death. If you really sit down and make an equation, we hardly think that you are above the life. You're always part of this momentum that's going around, and you never manage to rise yourself above it, to really analyze and realize what I should be doing. So there is always no gain, but on the contrary, you always feel you lost something. And that loss is at a very high level, and you cannot explain because you never explored inside. You never wanted to go inside to realize. You never wanted to sit down and analyze your life. So you're never even going to realize, but somehow that bitter taste is going to linger, that I messed up the whole life somehow. So we can hardly call it a life. It's not a life. The life of a master and life of a slave, the main difference is how you organize your life. So which way you want to go, what direction you want to take, and who should be in charge of your direction. That's the organization of your life. So the main difference between the two is how you organize your life. And that the life of a master is where the Atma, the soul, is in charge, and mind is the slave. In slave's life, mind is the master, and the body and the soul is almost like a slave. Soul is just riding along as if does not even exist. So has no importance. So master's life is called dharma. Slave's life is sansara. So master's life is dharma, as dhammo sanantanam. That's what Buddha always said. This dharma, as dhammo sanantanam. This is the permanent dharma. You cannot back up. You cannot equate, you cannot question. This is what it is. But that's gonna stay true forever, for generations, for eons to come. So this is Sanatana Dharma. And once we understand this, we have the key to live the life. Unless you understand how a master's life works, how the mechanics of the whole life works in the masters like Krishna, Mahavir, Buddha, if you try to understand their life was dictated by the soul, by the God, by the Paramatma, and body and the senses were the followers. Their organization was perfect. Until you understand this organization, you're not going to have a handle on the life. Life is going to slip away. By the moment to moment, inch by inch, life is slipping away. Whether you know it or not, it's the truth.
Important chapter.
What's that?
Important chapter.
Important, right. So in master's life, mind is the slave and consciousness, the awareness, the ultimate spirit is the master. Matter is the creation of the spirit, and yet we keep on worshipping the matter. For us, matter is everything. If we are afraid, we say, all right, Hanuman Chalisa pado. Because you listen to everybody else saying the same thing, so you do it. We don't know why we're doing it, but we're doing it. we bow down and we put sindoor and tel and oil and all to the
Yeah.
statue of Hanuman and thinking that he's going to take our fear away. We never want to sit down and analyze what fear is about. What is this fear? All we know is fear is there, but we just don't want to analyze. Either we don't have time, or we don't have any interest, or we think that material life still holds on to the pleasures worth going after, so we don't spend enough time or energy to really investigate what fear is. But we keep on saying that we have fear, we have stress, we have anxiety, we have this, we have that. Even when we accept the presence of God, the only reason we accept is because He's going to give us something. We always ask something from God. Either give me a new job, or fix my wife's illness, or whatever, or don't fix my wife's illness, or something like that. But our eyes are on matter.
You know what I'm thinking?
So ultimately our gains are material, our losses are also material. The only time we go to God is when we don't want the losses at the material level, or we want more and more gains at the material level, either for us or for our loved ones or our friends. But ultimately we're still playing the game of matter. We have never left the matter, even though we realize that God is above us, and He is, but we never really want to face Him face to face. And that's where the dhyan comes in, and that's where the meditation comes in, where you face God face to face. But nobody has courage to do that. So awareness is the master. Awareness is the one, our consciousness is the one should be dictating our life, not vrittis and not the vasanas. Vrittis and vasanas are creations of our senses interacting with the matter and creating all these imaginary pleasures and running after it, imaginary sufferings, running away from it, raga and dvesha, and all those things makes our journeys after journeys after journeys never reaching anywhere. So when all these things are dropped, not dropped meaning transcended, and we realize the presence of consciousness, presence of awareness, that's when the true life of a master starts. So awareness is part of the master. Master is not just aware. He's awareness himself. He becomes consciousness. He becomes aware. Somebody asked Buddha, one day he was sitting in a meditation and he was resting under a tree, and he had a very divine appearance, and he had a very majestic shining coming out from his face. So somebody was passing by, that, "Are you a god?" So Buddha laughed. He says, "No, I'm not a god." So he says, "Are you a kinder?" Kinders are like musicians in Swarg, in heavens, and musicians. They play, instruments for God, but they still belong in the heaven. So maybe a step below the God. He says, "Are you a kinder or something?" So he says, "No, I'm not a kinder either." He says, "Are you a human being?" So Buddha says, "No, I'm not a human being either." He says, "I'm really puzzled. What are you?" He says, "I'm a Buddha. I'm just awareness. I have become aware to such a point that I have dissolved myself calling a human being even. I have synchronized myself with awareness. I feel awareness 24/7. I am the awareness." So we all are Buddhas, only we have to realize.
We have to know.
So master who is aware, he lives every single moment. He's not tied to the past. He's not tied to the present. Because, future.
Future, okay.
Present is the moment which is the freshest of the moment there is. As soon as a moment becomes past, it becomes old. If you really go into meditation and experiment with yourself, you will realize that the present moment is just going to give you so much energy and so much vibrance. And if your mind starts thinking about something, thoughts have like stale feeling, stale appearance. Only if you experience in meditation, you can tell. Those subtle differences come only when you experiment with all these things. So, thoughts, by definition, are without past or the future based on your past experiences, because future is not here, so nobody can think about future unless you have experienced something and you try to build.
You're extrapolating.
But based still on the past. So everybody is living in the past. So the past is stale. So Master synchronizes himself with the present moment every single second. So he does not ask anything from Paramatma, because asking anything is again about the future. Now what are you going to ask? You're going to ask something you had a good experience about in the past. Again we look hooked up into the past. I want a 7-story building made out of gold. But you must have appreciated the value of gold, experience with the gold. So again, you're living in the past. So a master who is aware, he accepts every single moment as it is, as a gift from Paramatma. For him, future does not exist, because whatever the future will bring in, it will be still a gift from Paramatma. At that moment, he will be synchronizing himself with that particular moment.
So I have a question, it's just personal question. When the life that I'm struggling, how can you plan the future? Like if I want to find another job or something, how can I plan? Like if I'm living in present moment.
Living in the present is only a state of mind, a state of existence. And whatever thoughts are going to follow are going to be focused on the present moment, and that moment defines that you're looking for a job. So you're still in the present. Now if you start thinking, I'm not going to get that particular job and I'm going to get it, and you get disappointed, I'm not talking about that.
Right.
You are still synchronized in the present moment, but your mind is not affected by previous rejections, for example, or X amount of figures that you used to make and now you have to downgrade yourself. None of those things are going to, so again, the past is not going to bother you. You're going to have a very stable, steady state of mind. And then you're going to be doing whatever is required in that moment with that state of mind. So you can put the thoughts together, but the thoughts should be following your commands. You should not be dictated by the thoughts, but you should be dictating the thoughts. Then you are above the thoughts. So the reign of your life should be in your hands. And then only you can direct the life where the life should be going. Otherwise, the mind will be dragging you instead of you telling the mind where you should be going. So that is where the subtle difference comes in. If you rise yourself to the consciousness level, that's when all the things that will follow, you will be going according to your commands. The mind, the body, the senses, where you're going to end up, which friends you're going to make, what companies you're going to choose, what jobs you're going to take. All these things will be dictated at a much higher level. But the slave's life is a life of unconsciousness, where as if the charioteer is drunk and the senses are taking you to different places. And then you blame the senses. Oh, because of my this, because of my this. As if the horses are driving the chariots, and then you're blaming the horses. How can you blame the horses? You're not even ashamed of telling that, oh, it was the horse that me took into all these sufferings. Obviously the charioteer was drunk, was unconscious. You should have been conscious and riding the chariot in a proper way. But you allowed the senses to let you take wherever it took, as if you were slaves of the senses. And it has happened. Last night I had one of my friends' house. The City Group police called me, and they said that you were listed as a contact person for Mr. So-and-so, so very good friends. I said, yes. Say, yeah, but we're trying to contact them. That somebody by the name of one of the Indian names, I won't say that, but has been found, and he cannot give out his first name properly. And so I thought, is he living in their house? Or I said, not that I know. I don't know anybody living that name in their house because they're good friends. I said, anyway, I'll contact them. So I contacted them, and then they contacted them directly to the police. And ultimately, we found out that some guy was drunk.
He just walked into somebody else's house?
He drove into their lawn, front lawn, and made circles on the front lawn. And luckily, it stopped short of the house. The house didn't get damaged, and obviously, he could have been dead. They were not home. They were at some party or something. So, so senses are taking you to all these places, and they'll be blaming the senses. We're blaming the alcohol. We're blaming this. Oh, it's because of this and because of that. And we don't even have a shame of assigning the important things that we should be doing onto the dead things, you know. So that is the life of a slave. He's living the life of unconsciousness.
So most of the time it looks like we are being driven by the horses more than
Exactly.
even
That's
mind.
true.
Not even mind.
Well,
Forget
mind is part of the senses. Mind is Indra.
No, it's experience. You're trying to, the difference between a horse and a mind is, horse is where the experience occurs, right? So you want to repeat the experience.
No, that's not true. The thing is, eyes only pass the image. Eyes do not really see anything.
Okay.
Until the images are passed and transferred to the mind, mind interprets what it saw.
Right.
So mind is like a command center that holds on to all the senses. Ears only pass the sound sensations, and the mind decides what it heard.
Yeah.
The same thing for the touch, same thing for the taste, everything. Everything is controlled at the mind level. So in scriptures, the mind is equated to Indra,
Right.
because all the lesser gods are called Indriyas.
So how do you differentiate between the senses and mind?
No,
There's
the
no
mind
difference.
is part of the senses. Mind created the senses, believe it or not. Mind saw the need to see, and the eyes were created. I'm talking about evolutionary purpose, explained from the spiritual sense. That mind wanted to hear, so the ears were created. With the help of the air, medium, and the water, and all the mediums were, so 5 senses were created because of the needs of the mind. And the mind is the rudimentary, urge to explore the world like that. So ultimately, sensations are considered lesser gods, as if they are bringing offerings from the society ultimately to the higher god, which is the Indra. That's why they call Indra and the Indriyas. And that's why the senses are called Indriyas. So mind and senses, but then mind does have a higher function, that mind can focus itself, because mind has a tremendous capacity to absorb all these sensations from different Indriyas, but the same capacity of the mind can be folded back.
So mind can interpret same input as either a pleasure or a pain.
Of course, yeah. But then, like I said, because now it can start realizing the God also. And that is the ultimate purpose of the life, is to direct the mind to the higher purpose. Yes?
How does the brain of play in this role?
Intellect.
As the alcoholic guy who ran over.
Intellect?
Well, the brain as a physical structure is not equated to the mind
Right.
somehow. It's just the same way heart as a physical structure is not equated to the real heart, the spiritual heart of the body, where the spirituality says, the heart says, the feeling, the love is basically present everywhere. The same way the mind is really present in every single molecule, every single atom of our body, because mind does not have a finite existence. So it is present, and every cell, now if you really compare scientifically, every cell has sensors on the cell wall, and all these sensors have been sensing what is out there. For example, if you have genes for diabetes, And if you continuously expose yourself with the bad foods, with the sugary foods, and all these things, these genes are going to get activated, but the signal came throughout the body where all the sugar is it's not like in the brain. There's nothing, the brain and the mind are two separate things. So, yes.
Yeah, but the alcohol directly relates into the blood. The blood affects
Agree.
your...
No, that's at the brain level. Agree. You know, and the brain cannot function.
That's right.
Obviously,
That's what
yeah.
happened to this guy. He kept on suffering.
So I text to my friends, it looks like this guy decided to have a party on your lawn. I don't know what music he was playing.